I'm Willem and this is the 2005 Aston Martin DB9 and today I'm going to review it. I'm going to start off by talking about the exterior of the car, have a look at the interior and then take it for a drive. So the Aston Martin DB9 was introduced in 2004 as a successor to the Aston Martin DB7. I remember seeing James Bond Casino Royale in 2006 for the first time and thinking this was an absolutely beautiful car. I think it was still one of the most beautiful cars I've ever seen in my life in 2006, and still now this car is amazing to look at. It's just everything about it, the lines, the curves from outside, the way the light reflects off of it, I don't know, everything just looks right, and I think Aston Martin did an amazing job with the styling aspect. By that time the Aston Martin DB7 got a little bit long in the tooth. It looked like a bit of a 90s car. They needed something new, so I don't think there's a better way to introduce a new car as in a new James Bond movie, where James Bond is actually a new guy as well, played by Daniel Craig, of course. So the owner of this car told me that this is one of the first 5 Aston Martin DB9s that were imported into South Africa back in 2005, and it's pretty cool. I think that makes this car quite cool and differentiates it from all the rest. Another thing that differentiates this car from other cars is the V12 engine it's got under the bonnet. That's something you don't really see anymore, especially with newer cars being V6s, turbocharged, a little bit of V8s but not a lot left. This is really something that stood out, and the owner of this car specifically said he always wanted to own a V12, and why not go for an Aston Martin? It's an absolutely awesome engine and a beautiful car as well. So coming up to the side of the car, one of the first things you'll notice are these air vents or extractor vents that's in the side there. You'll see these on a lot of Aston Martin models from back in the day, the DB5s and the older Aston Martins, and these are really cool. I think it really adds to the look of the car. There are some car manufacturers using fake air vents on the sides just as a styling aspect, and I think they started to copying it from these. And yeah, these are really cool, and I think it works with this car. So the next thing you'll notice on the car are these rims. These are 19-inch rims, which nowadays don't really sound as big. I know some of the car manufacturers are doing like 22, 23-inch standard size rims nowadays, but for the time it was pretty cool, these rims, and I think it looks really good with a little Aston Martin badge in the middle. So coming to the front of the car, you'll notice this Aston Martin grille, which you've seen in obviously a lot of Aston Martins. This is a really signature look of an Aston Martin car, and it looks really good in this car, and I think they incorporate it nicely. So the next thing you'll notice are these headlamps. These are obviously not LEDs like you see nowadays in most cars. These are still xenon headlamps, but they are still really beautiful. I think Aston Martin did a really good job of keeping this car in a very nice contemporary look, and it's sort of timeless. Back in the day when you saw a lot of the cars on the road, they had older headlamps and the pop-up style headlamps, which didn't really last too long and look too good. But these are still timeless, and I think they'll last very long still, and it's still one of the most beautiful headlamps I've seen. So of course, when looking at the Aston Martin, you can see this big sloping hood or bonnet that we call it in South Africa. I know you Americans like to call it a hood, but we call it a bonnet. It's got these 2 air vents at the top as well, because it's hiding a massive V12 engine, a 6-litre V12 engine under the bonnet. And let's open it up and have a look. So opening up the engine bay, this reveals this beautiful 6-litre V12 Aston Martin naturally aspirated engine, and it looks amazing. It's massive. It's a massive engine, and you'll also notice some smaller things here. You've got this little Aston Martin plaque at the bottom which reads hand built in England, which is really cool, and then final inspection is done by someone called Paul Goddard. Well done, Paul. Also, you'll notice there's a couple of Aston Martin badges in the middle here. You'll notice an Aston Martin badge on the actual engine bay, and it says Aston Martin on the left and Aston Martin on the right, so you know it's definitely an Aston Martin engine. You'll also see on the engine filler cap there's a small Aston Martin badge as well, just in case when you're putting in oil you forget that you're actually driving an Aston Martin. So seeing that we're looking at the engine, why don't we take a listen how it sounds. So looking at the back of the car, you can see these 2 tail lights here. It's sort of split in the middle, and I think it looks really good. The bottom part sort of forms into the indicator light when you switch it on and off, which works nicely, so you don't have to stick like an indicator light somewhere and it spoils the look of the car, and I think it really works. So looking at the back of the car, you can see it's got actual tailpipes, not fake ones like a lot of car manufacturers do nowadays. These are really real tailpipes and they work, and I've showed you they work. I'm not going to stick something in it to show you that they work like some other car reviewers do, which is very cool, but I'm not going to copy that. And it also sounds weird to stick something in a pipe. These are real and I think it works, and I like the size of them and they look very, very nice coated in chrome. Before we look at the interior of the car, I just want to show one more thing. It's these doors. They actually open in a quite interesting way. You push this little thing and it opens up. And you will see that these doors are not opening like normal. They lift a little bit up, and it's not like really extravagant like a lot of cars you'll see, like the Lamborghinis or whatever, that opens up like this. But these ones actually lift a little bit up, and I think it gives the car like a little bit of a cool look, and it just makes it look a little bit more special than normal. So before you step into this car, you'll see this little plaque here that says DB9, hand built in England, which is pretty cool. I think it makes the car a little bit more special than other cars, and you'll see it every time you step in and step out of the car. And of course, at the time, it was probably something to brag about. We all know about Land Rover's reliability, and it's absolutely amazing. So, sitting in the interior of the Aston Martin DB9, it is a really nice place to be in still. This car is almost 15 years old, but it really felt like it held up well. The leather looks amazing. It's on the steering wheel, it's on the dash, it's on the seats. Everything is covered with leather. You'll see Alcantara on the roof line, which is really cool. I love Alcantara for some reason. I don't know why, but I really like it. And you'll see leather all over the place. The dashboard is full with leather, like I mentioned before, and the seats. And you've got even the safety belt covers has leather on them, and there's leather on the handbrake as well. The rest of the materials feel really good. It's all covered in aluminium, which is really nice, and it works well with the leather, and I quite like the nice cream leather look. It works with this car for me. One area where this car is showing a little bit its age is this instrument panel over here. It's got a lot of buttons on them, and it does feel a little bit plasticky, but it really looks quite nice still. I like the silver, and it works with the aluminium covers in the rest of the interior. But still, you can see a little bit of its age. It's got the analog clock in the middle, which some cars still do, to show you that you're driving a very luxury car. And some of the dials, yes, they feel a little bit plasticky, a little bit, yeah, you know, when you press them they don't feel too great. And a lot of cars nowadays are obviously doing a big infotainment screen in the middle where you can do everything. This, you can see it's 15 years old, but it really still works. They've made it quite timeless, to be honest. And the air vents at the top, they also look like more something out of a Jaguar, but they do work and they look really nice. What you'll also notice about this interior is that it's got this wood obviously at the top here with this part that looks like it's cut out. What's actually underneath there is a LCD screen. It's very old for the time, and seeing that this car was imported from England, the owner has actually disabled it so it doesn't pop up. One of the first things you'll notice in the car is that the steering wheel is not covered with buttons like a lot of modern supercar and sports cars nowadays. It's nice and plain, and it looks really nice. I quite like the size of it. It's not too thick where you hold it. It's got a few little buttons here at the bottom. It's got your cruise control settings, and that's pretty much it, and maybe some radio adjustable settings here. But other than that, it's nice and plain, and I really like the look. Looking at the top, you'll see the dashboard here. We have two analog dials, one for your speed and one for your revs. I think it looks really nice because the two dials actually move the other way around, like the new BMW models with the screen. A lot of people don't like it. Then one of the other things you'll notice are these seat adjustments here. They are not on the side where you would expect. You would usually feel your seat on the right there and feel where can you adjust your seat. The reason for this is on the driver's side you have your actual handbrake lever here, which is quite interesting. I know a lot of the older Ferraris also had it here. I think it's to save space here in the middle, but they had it on the right here, which is quite interesting, and that is why they have the seat adjustments on the left here. Getting into the car, you can feel you're sitting quite low. These seats are relatively comfortable. I don't think they're too bad, but they do snug you a little bit for you going around corners and driving and stuff. So this car is really a focused driver's car. You sit quite low as well, not as low as some cars, but it is low enough to give you a very nice position. One of the main things, you can't really see over the bonnet. It's got a very long bonnet, as we all saw before, but the seating position is really good, and it feels like the perfect driving position. Another thing that's quite interesting about the interior, it's got this little leather pouch here, which is, I assumed it's meant for your credit cards or something that you can stick in there, or a probably not a pen, but something similar. And it's also got a few switches here. One switch to open your boot, another switch to lock and unlock the car, which is quite interesting placements for the switches. There's also a little power outlet here that you open up, and there's actually a 12-volt socket, which is quite nice. Obviously no USB ports. That was quite still new at the time in 2005, so you won't really see it. And it's got a few buttons here as well. You've got one button to control your parking distance control, one button that I'm not entirely sure what that does, one sport button, and one button to turn off your traction control, which we are probably not going to do today, but it's still cool to know it's there if you want to take it on the track or push it properly. Then instead of having a gear selector, you've got buttons at the top there. In the middle you have obviously the engine start button, which you use to start the car, but there's also a key that you use. And then you've got a button for parking, for reverse, which is R, then neutral, and then drive for D if you want to use the automatic. So seeing that there's not really storage here on the armrest, there is at least a storage cubbyhole here, which opens like this. It's electrically open, which is quite interesting. So if the car's off, you can't open it, but if the car's on, obviously then you can open it. And it is not massive. You have the owner's manual here, which I'll take out now, which also it sort of looks like a checkbook, but I think it looks quite cool. It says DB9 on it and owner's guide at the bottom. So seeing that there's not a lot of space for your stuff in the car, maybe the back seats can accommodate you, because it is after all a 4-seater car. And let's see if we can fit. So I just attempted to get into the back seat of the Aston Martin DB9, and it was impossible for me. There is literally around 4 inches of knee room, so maybe if you're made out of paper you could fit, but for me I couldn't fit at all. But at least you can see it as an extra place to store some things, seeing that there's not a lot of storage in the front. So that concludes my interior and exterior look at the car. Let's take it for a drive. So, driving the Aston Martin DB9. I have to say this is an amazing experience for me. I've always wanted to drive this car, and today is that day. And to be frank, you feel very cool driving this car. I know it's obviously a beautiful car and everyone knows it's a beautiful car, but this V12 engine is just something that is amazing. It's just really, really something else. This car puts out around 335 kilowatts, which is around 450 brake horsepower, which in today's terms isn't really a lot. I mean, you've got these V6s now turbocharged, you've got V8 engines, AMG engines pushing out 600, 700 horsepower, but this car has something special to it. I think that naturally aspirated V12 just makes for this car to be feeling a lot more special than those cars. And this engine really, really has personality. I mean, it's got a V12 engine, 450 brake horsepower, so it's not slow. And it really, really makes the most amazing sound. If you pop it into sport down here and put your foot down, woo! I don't know if you guys can hear that, but that is amazing. The response is, there's no turbo lag, there's no lagging with it, but it's just, it takes a little bit time to get on. And of course there's no turbo, so there's no turbo lag, but it's just this engine it wants to be revved out as well, and it wants to be driven quite hard. Steering wise, it's quite a heavy steering, which I like. I like a heavy steering. I don't like the electric light steering nowadays, and this heavy steering is somewhat refreshing in a car, especially with something with V12. If you like my videos, please subscribe to my channel and like this video and drop a comment. And also please go and follow me on Instagram at Auto. Also, if you have a cool car for me to review, please send me an email at willem@auto.com, and I would gladly come to you and review the car, if it's an interesting car, of course.